Well, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Green Capital Partnership to this quarterly gathering, which is focusing on waste and resources. I'm a non-executive director of the partnership. I've taken that position since January, and I'm also the business development director of Resource Futures, which is an environmental business based in Bristol. We operate UK-wide, but our DNA is in Bristol. We started in Bristol. We helped set up some of the recycling schemes in Bristol in the early days, and a lot of the ideas that we've taken out of Bristol started in Bristol. And I'm passionate about making Bristol a more resourceful city, and that includes bringing some of the ideas that we are developing in other parts of the country back here. Okay, so a few housekeeping notes first. First of all, this event is being filmed. Rob, can you just stick up your hand, and Vicky, wherever Vicky is. If anybody doesn't want to be in the shots, then can they please let Rob or Vicky know? Vicky is at the back. Can you just stick your hand up, Vicky? Thank you. There are not expected to be any fire alarms today, so if the fire alarm does go off, we will need to vacate the building. The fire exits are from that door and that door. Toilets are through the back doors and turn left, and there are further toilets downstairs. And the internet, for those of you who want to use the internet, is Trinity Open. That's their Wi-Fi. And lastly, it's great to be here at Trinity. This in itself is a reused building, and it's taken quite a lot of effort and a lot of fundraising to get it to this position. And as with all old buildings, there are always challenges. So there is a particular challenge at the moment with their tower, so they are looking for further fundraising initiatives. So if anybody's interested in that, there is information in the graffiti room, which is where the teas and coffees are. Okay? Jolly good. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of information about the Green Capital Partnership. Many of you here will already be fully engaged, but there may be people who this is the first time you've been to a partnership event. So just to say a little bit more about that, we're aiming to make Bristol a truly sustainable city, but also livable, smart and fun. We won the European Green Capital status because we were a fun city and that we make sustainability fun. It's not always serious. And we also want to be prepared to explore new ideas, so hence we have regular gatherings like this. The last one was on transport, where we came up with a local transport plan. So it's very much about citizen engagement in citywide issues. The history of the partnership was that it started in 2007 by Bristol City Council, and it had some initial environmental organisations who've been active in the city for a long time, and over the years it's delivered various reports, and it was very much part of the team that won the European Green Capital status. So it's been about inspiring change. So the partnership was involved in launching the Bristol Pound back in 2011, and during Bristol 2015 there were a number of community grants, and before that there was a community challenge fund which has catalysed local action. And there was also the Who Feeds Bristol report. In 2014, so running up into the 2015 year, there was a period of transition, and we felt that the partnership needed to establish itself as a legal entity. So early in 2014 it became an independent community interest company, and it had been developing its relationship through the Bristol 2015 company, and at that stage also set up a number of action groups focusing on different topics. I think there were 16 in total at one point. So during 2015 we were very engaged in communications with our members about how to get involved in the 2015 events, and also encouraging members to apply for funding through 2015. And there were also lots of gatherings and monthly mingles. There's a monthly mingle at Bordeaux Quay every first Thursday of every month, but also through the partnership offering some leadership and expertise and advice. So that's just some pictures of the gatherings. In terms of projects, there was a water fountain project which involved Bristol Water. There's a refill station just outside at Bristol, but that also then led to further action about refill, and we'll be hearing about that more later. Fair Trade International Towns Conference, lots of activity around food, new network of reuse organisations, we'll hear more about that later, and a new economy summit as well. Good transport plan I've mentioned, and one could go on. I mean, there are just lots and lots of these examples. One of the things that we did was run a Healthy City Week. That was done on a very minimal budget. We had over 99 local organisations taking part with over 100 events, so lots and lots of activity. Looking forward, we are now an independent partnership. We have just appointed our new chief executive. Well, we haven't had a chief executive before, so it's our first chief executive, and Ian Townsend. And now Ian doesn't actually start this job till the end of June. He had booked in to come to here anyway, so we decided it was a good opportunity for him just to say a couple of words about himself before joining in the event. So I'm just going to hand over to Ian for a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Jane. For the opportunity to say hello to you all today. So, hello. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to join the partnership at a really exciting time following our year's Green Capital. I really look forward to helping to achieve our aim of achieving a city, my home city of Bristol, which is a low-carbon city with a high quality of life for all. I'm joining from the international development sector, where I've been working on the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals are universal. They apply to all countries in the world, including the UK, and they're very broad, but they do include one on responsible consumption and production. So minimising our city's waste, raising recycling and reuse rates is not only an important contribution for ourselves, for our own aims, but also our contribution to sustainability globally as well. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this issue with you all today in more detail, and look forward to working with you all in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. And obviously we'll all be seeing more of Ian in the coming months. Now, one of the things that we felt very strongly about at the end of last year as the partnership was that we had to get the partnership on a better financial footing in order to be able to deliver on some of the programmes of work that we were all committed to. And this was something that I've been involved in trying to develop these sorts of partnerships in Bristol since the mid-90s. So it feels like this is a really exciting time, I feel, because we were able, through getting together a group of founding partners who have all prepared not only to give their time as non-executive directors, but have also put money into the partnership. We are in a position, we've been able to employ Ian, we have Vicky as our operations manager, and we're able to actually we've got a 3-year commitment from our organisations to take the partnership forward, and this is such a significant progress from where we have been in the past, so it's a very exciting time. So just a little bit about the waste and resources theme. So we've had a waste and resources action group which has been operating since 2014. We met a lot during 2014, and during 2014 we decided to focus on reuse. So actually the 2015 activity really was focused on reuse. There's a new reuse network been set up, and Ben Moss, who's the chair of that, will talk to you more about that later. Other things that happened during the year is the Bristol refill. Again, we're going to hear more about that. There were a number of litter-based education projects happened throughout the city. There was a local food redistribution scheme set up by FareShare South West. And we also did guidance and training for all of the organisers of events in Bristol, from the very large to the very small, on running sustainable events. So quite a lot of activity. Things that have happened since, Bristol Waste Company, as I've mentioned earlier, they were set up last August. I'm going to hear more about them. And Bristol City Council's waste strategy was approved by Cabinet in March of this year. So there's now an opportunity to feed into that action planning and delivery. And in 2016, we were awarded silver status for the Sustainable Food Cities Award, which is tackling food waste was quite an important part of that. Not the only part, clearly, because there's a lot of other issues relating to food. But it just demonstrates how this cross-sector working can really bring benefits to the city. So that's all from me for now. I'll come back and explain more about the workshops before we start them, but I'm going to hand over to Alison Comley now, who's the Neighbourhood Director at Bristol City Council, who's going to talk a little bit about the Bristol's waste strategy.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to come here this morning. My job in the council is the Strategic Director of Neighbourhoods, and what that means in terms of the council is I'm responsible for a number of things, one of which being the council's responsibility for waste. And it's been a busy year in the Directorate in terms of waste. Tracy's going to talk a little bit later on about Bristol Waste Company, but developing and getting through and getting agreed a new waste and resources strategy has been a big piece of work in the council. We're really, really grateful in terms of the work of the Green Capital Partnership and the Waste and Resources Action Group in helping us to kind of shape that, and more of that sort of later this morning. I also stand here with a bit of an apology. You will know in terms of the recent election there's been quite a lot of changes in the council. The cabinet member for neighbourhoods who will have a responsibility for waste is now Councillor Margaret Hickman, who would very much have liked to been here this morning to speak to you, but she asked me to apologise on her behalf. She's got personal commitment she couldn't miss this morning, but she asked if I would pass on her apologies, and she's looking forward to working with you all in the future. I think it is great to see so many people in the room this morning, and Jane talked about expertise and ideas. Before this meeting started at 9:30, I've heard 3 really interesting ideas just over coffee. And I think in terms of the expertise in this room, I'm really interested to hear what comes out of this morning, because clearly there is passion, there is a lot of knowledge that we can really use to help drive this strategy forward. We're really keen, and in terms of the waste and resources strategy, the new one for Bristol, that it's a city strategy. The council obviously does have some very specific responsibilities, but we want to see this strategy for the city. And I'm hoping this morning, as we kind of talk and discuss in terms of the workshops, we can think big, we can think wide, we can think about where we need to take this strategy in terms of really making a difference for people. We've started to think about actions, because I talked about a lot of work in terms of a strategy. Great to have a strategy, but actually what the people of Bristol want to see is, so what are you going to do then? What are the actions? And again, I know that the workshops will help feed into that action plan for the city, and look at how we can engage everyone. I think the legacy of the Green Capital in terms of involving the whole city is really important, and being able to build on that and get everyone to be thinking about what are the things that they can do individually, what can we do within our communities, and then what can we do as a city, and then, you know, what can we do kind of nationally as well. I think obviously we're really keen to share actions, keen to share how we might take that forward, and keen to involve everybody in this room. The title, because we had a waste strategy, we've now got a waste and resource strategy, which is really, really important. That bit about resources and thinking about how do we achieve a zero waste Bristol? How do we make the best and most efficient use of resources by minimising our demand as a city on our natural resources? How do we prevent and minimise waste? maximise repair and reuse. Jane talked about 2014 and 15 focusing on reuse. And it's really, I'm really keen and interested about how we kind of take that forward, take those ideas forward, so that the city is not just discarding things, but actually we're thinking about resources in a much more holistic way. We want to be ambitious, and we can only be ambitious as a city together. And I think in terms of that creative thinking about how we take those ideas forward, today is a really good opportunity to make connections, to put forward ideas and really look at what we might do that's simple and some complicated stuff as well. How do we really embed that in the city? We want to talk about and embed thinking about a more circular economy. And I know there's a lot of people in this room who will have been talking and working on a circular economy forever. We need to actually kind of take that out into the city and think about how we do that to protect both the economy and the environment. We also know that if our city is cleaner and greener, that also supports a whole wide range of other objectives. One of the things that I'm also responsible for in neighbourhoods is public health. And we know that if the streets are cleaner, people are more likely to walk, more likely to cycle. And we know that the impact in terms of people walking and cycling on people's health, both physical health and emotional well-being, is really important. So there's something about the importance of this strategy and how it can also link and feed into wider objectives for the city. Also help supporting us being a resilient city. I know Sarah's here today in terms of the resilience work. This is a really important part of that if we can really take this strategy forward. Of course there are challenges, and that will be part of this morning in terms of that debate. We know that we've collectively, across all sectors, have got reducing financial resources. So how can we do the best with the resources that we've got? What are the challenges of that? And I suppose I'm quite interested in terms of from a local government perspective, and I know I often feel like the dull person from the council sometimes, but there is something about thinking about how we do things differently. How might we as a council kind of give up a few things if it's going to make the strategy deliver? And I think that's something that across the public sector, with reducing resources, that's a conversation we need to have. We want to empower citizens to tackle issues in their own area. And again, the work that a number of you are already doing across the city is really important. How do we scale that up? How do we make sure our communities have got the right support to do that, where they need support to do that? And how do we think about maximising that prevention? Because I guess what we'd really like to see, if we think about the strategy, actually we want to get as upstream as possible in terms of making sure there's less resources wasted as possible. And that is about partnership working. And I again thank the Green Capital Partnership in terms of this quarterly meeting, focusing on waste. I think that's really, really helpful because it's an issue. I've been going to a number of meetings recently about a number of different issues, big city issues, that no one organisation can tackle on their own. Actually, what we've got to do is build those partnerships that are already really solid in the city, but look at how we might take them to the next level. In terms of targets, I'm sure you all will have seen the strategy, but there's some kind of key headline targets. We want to produce the lowest amount of residual household waste per person per year of any UK city. We want to send less than 5% of waste to landfill by 2030. Recycle and prepare for reuse, 50% by 2020 and 70% by 2025. Reduce the amount of food waste going into our black bins, and again, as Jane said, the work on the Silver Award, that was very much kind of part of that thinking. We need to go further and explain to people, work with people in terms of reducing that food waste. And we want to make our citizens feel much more satisfied with where they live. I referenced earlier, street scene is really important. Where you live and the quality of where you live is really important to how people feel about their communities, feel about their neighbourhoods. And I think there's a lot that we can do collectively that can help support that. The other kind of piece, I guess, around this is Tracy's going to talk in a moment about Bristol Waste Company. One of the things that we did as a council nearly a year ago now, it's a very busy time, it was in terms of the council setting up a wholly owned company to take back the contract from Kia. In terms of wanting to look at how we might do things differently and better. Tracy's going to talk a little bit about what's happened over the last year. That is obviously only focusing at the moment on the collection service, but clearly that's quite an important piece of the jigsaw in thinking about the waste strategy overall. So finally, again, I'm really looking forward to the discussion this morning, as I've learned a lot already in the short time I've been here. I think the discussions and what comes out of the discussions, and I would encourage you, I probably don't need to encourage you actually, in terms of being really creative about your ideas, about how might we respond to some of the challenges, because I know, just looking around the room and some of the people that I know in the room, there is a huge amount of creativity in this room. It'd be really great to harness that this morning and look at how we can really take that forward into the strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison. And I'd like to introduce you to Tracy Morgan. Tracy is Managing Director of the Bristol Waste Company, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what the company is and what its plans are for the future.
Okay, thanks, Jane. So I'm Tracy Morgan. I'm the Managing Director of Bristol Waste. And as you've heard this morning, we've been going now for about 10 months. And Alison is on the board of Bristol Waste Company as well, so she's not always boring as being part of the council. Sorry. So what I wanted to share with you is, since we've been operating since August last year, you'll see us around the city all the time because we employ just over 450 staff, and they're out there cleaning your streets, collecting your refuse, collecting your recycling, and in the winter months we also kind of do the snow clearance. In order to provide that service, we have about 180 kind of fleet vehicles and different plants, and we need that in order to kind of do this. We clean 800 miles of streets, paths and retail. That's the equivalent, to put it into perspective, of here to Edinburgh and back. So it's quite a big task. We actually collect 17 million collections a year, so that's on refuse and recycling. And we collect 140,000 tonnes of waste, of which some of that, 53,000 tonnes, goes to recycling and composting. And we deal with about 180,000 ad hoc requests. So that's where people have kind of done graffiti or fly tipped, and we have to go and kind of clear up behind people. So one of the things, even though we've only been going 10 months, is we wanted to be clear about the vision and the kind of what we wanted to achieve as a company. And so, in line with everything you're going to hear today, and you've already heard so far, we wanted to make sure that we are supporting the council in what it wants to achieve. And so the kind of outcomes that we've set ourselves to achieve is to assist in the reduction of waste, to increase recycling and reuse, and to make sure that we have cleaner streets. And that actually people are proud in Bristol in terms of the look and feel of the city. Now, as we all know, waste is a shared responsibility. And we believe it can only be truly managed by a set of kind of behavioural changes. And in order to achieve the outcome, that's the things that we need to do. And we can only do that in collaboration with working with residents, community groups, businesses and partners, if we want to achieve those outcomes. Now, as Alison said, we took over the contract from Kia in August 2015, and our remit at that time was to kind of just continue with stability of services and kind of, make sure that it didn't fall over in the kind of the swap. And so we had a kind of a year-long contract. So we haven't been able to do many big changes. But what we have done in that time is I think we have improved the services. We've still got a lot more work to do. And we've kind of improved the performance within the organisation. So what we're doing now is we're actually writing a 10-year business plan, which will be taken back to the council in the summer for a longer-term future. Now, because we're wholly owned by the City Council, we still operate as a commercial business. But one of the unique things about Bristol Waste and the benefits is that we're there to kind of deliver the kind of social value and kind of do things that are right for Bristol. We're not about making a profit that can be returned to a shareholder. So it is all about kind of what Bristol needs, and we can kind of focus on that. So one of our key commitments is we want to make sure that we are working in partnership with all of you and with everybody else to make sure that we can kind of achieve those outcomes that we're all here for today. We've already started to work with some community groups, so Bedminster and BS5 group, to kind of hear what it is that frustrates them and kind of what those issues are, and so as we can kind of work with them and support them to address those issues. And then we can take some of the lessons learned from that and apply that to other community groups and other neighbourhood partnerships. One of the things we've done in the 10 months we've been going is we've tried to kind of identify what are the issues we need to tackle. So one of the issues that we had a problem with was recycling from students and the kind of the amount of waste and stuff. So we did a pilot where we collected a lot of data in terms of what was currently happening. Then with Resource Futures, we did some work around talking to the students, doing some communication, education, giving out literature, so as they knew how to recycle, what was expected of them. And then we measured what was happening after we made some changes. So we actually changed the collection methodology. So instead of having everything separately collected, we put in place a commingled service, and we found that it went from 11% recycling up to 27%, which was a huge success. Still not anywhere near good enough, and still a lot of work to be done there. But we also had kind of reduced waste coming from, it was about 7 blocks that we did the pilot with. So that's something that we can look to kind of do more of in the future. One of the things for us as a waste company is health and safety is a big issue for us. So we wanted to make sure that we had good, safe systems of work in place, and that we were training the staff, and that we were using the right tools, and we're doing the right risk assessments and everything else. So we've invested heavily in kind of putting in those safe systems of work and actually making sure that the buildings that people are working in and the tools they use are kind of up to the standard they should be. When we took over, there was a huge reliance on agency staff, and one of the things that we've done since we've been operating is we've reduced that reliance on agency staff, and we've created more permanent employment, and people have been promoted and into those roles. So we have a much more settled workforce now, and our commitment to kind of continually to develop those staff kind of goes with that. Now, one of the things I've heard this morning, and I'm quite proud to say, is 82% of our staff actually live within the boundary as well as work within it, and we are truly, as you can hear from my accent, we are truly a Bristol-based company, and we're very proud and passionate on that basis. We've also worked quite heavily with the trade unions, so with Unite and with Unison, because we want to have those good relationships with our workforce, and so we've entered into a learning partnership agreement. So we do quite a bit of training now on site for our staff to give them other skills. So what's the next steps for us? So I think we want to get a longer term contract, so we're taking our business plan to the council in summer. And one of the things we think we can achieve and we can offer the City Council is we should be able to help them achieve their ambitions of the 3rd household waste recycling centre and having a reuse centre within that. So we believe we can contribute to that. We also believe that we have a big role in terms of the encouraging, communicating, educating and engaging customers and residents in the kind of changes that need to be made. And we're working with the council as well to make sure that where people don't take things properly and they just dump waste and stuff, that we do take the right enforcement action so people know that we're serious about having a city that we can all be proud of, and they all have a part to play in that. The other thing we're going to do in 2017 is look at the collection methodology, because our fleet kind of comes to its natural life in the end of 2018. So we have an opportunity to look at what would be the best collection methodology that increases participation, that stays within a kind of cost affordability envelope, but also kind of increases the tonnage and everything else. So, and we've been working with Resource Futures on modelling some of that, but there's more work to be done. So that will be a big piece of work next year. We also, as a company, because we do all the domestic collections in the city, we have an opportunity to offer a commercial service. So there's something there that we can offer to businesses and traders across the city, that we can actually collect their recycling, and we want to promote more recycling and collect their residual waste as well. And then what we also want to do is build on the kind of pilot we did with the student flats, is to look at whether there's more work we can do with flats in terms of, you know, do we kind of go to a commingled service there? Does that increase the participation and make people kind of recycle more? So lots of work and lots of things we need to kind of test out and see if that kind of brings the results we want it to bring. And then if it does, then we can look at rolling things like that out across the city. So what's our desired outcomes? I think as a Bristol Waste Company, we want to become Bristol City Council's integrated, intelligent provider of all waste-related services. So that we're not just looking at collection, we're looking at collection right through to disposal and all the kind of ancillary services that go with that. And we want to make sure that we have more participation in recycling and reuse, that waste levels go down, and that we have a cleaner city, and one that, again, we're all proud of. But we can only truly do this if we do it in partnership with yourselves and other people across the city. So there's a number of us here today from Bristol Waste Company, and we'd love to engage with you during the day to get some of your ideas about how we can deliver our services better and in a way that we're all on the same journey. So thank you, and I look forward to meeting up with you this morning. Thank you.
Now, I just wanted to give you a flavour before we move into the workshops of some of the other initiatives, can you hear me okay, that have been happening in the city over the last couple of years. So these are just very short 5-minute pictures. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Ben Moss, who is chair of the Bristol Reuse Network, and Ben was also founded the Bristol Wood Recycling Project a few years back now. Okay, over to you, Ben.
Hello. Hi, everybody. A few years ago, that was 13 years ago. No, it does feel, well, it feels like that. So I haven't got a Bristolian accent, but I do feel that I'm part of Bristol, and it's really nice looking out here and seeing loads of familiar faces who have been involved in the world of waste or resources, and that's really what's inspired what's been going on with Bristol Reuse, because it was. Have I got a slide on? No. Well, I know there's.
If you go.
You can just look at my name, and that's it. That's my slide. So I'm going to have to entertain you with like, I'm quite small down here, but I'll have to entertain you with a big picture. So yeah, it was in 2014. It was at the announcement of the Green Capital that there was also discussions going on within the grassroots, the social enterprises involved in reuse within Bristol, which there are many, and I'm sure you know about them. And it was a conversation about how can we work together collaboratively. We're all doing our stuff together, and we've all been doing it for quite a long time. And within Bristol, there's a great interest in reuse, be it from wood to furniture to scrap. So how do we work together so that we can actually join within this green capital city and further our own objectives, but also with the idea of transforming the city into a truly sustainable city? So the conversation started back then in 2014, and the network has grown to quite a formless shape of lots of people interested, lots of organisations. What started as social enterprises is now involves the university, and it involves organisations which make a profit, but they're also involved in reuse. And what we are about as a network is about shared values, so that we're all working towards looking at the same vision. So our values that we're all based on, the values are of sustainability, efficiency, sufficiency, equity, beauty, and community. And within Bristol that makes sense, but also on a global level that makes sense. And that's really what we're also about here. It's what is happening in Bristol is being magnified to other parts of the world, and that's really what we need to do, because as the rest of the world emulates the West, we need to make sure that we're changing the ways that we do things as cities, as individuals, and as a collective. So at the moment, the organisations, the grassroots organisations, we live and breathe reuse, and so we're working with everything from wood to bikes and food, white goods and furniture, scrap, arts, and building materials. So we've got a wide range of organisation based on the ground, and it's a social movement of sorts, and it's about a principle of revaluing our resources. Our vision and our mission, it echoes what the Bristol Green Partnership's vision on resources is, which is to make Bristol a leading circular economy city where people are focused on reducing their residual waste through waste prevention, reuse and recycling, and businesses that are engaged in adopting circular business models. We emulate that as well, but we're taking it down to the ground. So we want a city where all materials in Bristol can be and are reused through a citywide circular system, delivering, promoting and supporting creative and intelligent reuse for social and global health. So big picture stuff. But down on the ground, like what are we actually doing at the moment? We're all involved as our individual organisations involved in reuse, but also we have been at the Recycling Centre in St Philip's, and if anyone has been there this year, we've been there since the middle of January, and in our own little way, hopefully we'll be making a big difference. So as you come into the Recycling Centre now, through agreement with the council, we have got two shipping containers, and it's staffed by some merry volunteers and staff, both that have been funded through the Green Capital Partnership initially, but also different organisations who are participating in the project. So the Wood Project, Emmaus, Rework, send their staff and volunteers. So those people are there, they meet the public and see what people are throwing away. And if any of it is reusable, then we take that and we put that in the containers, and then the enterprises come and collect the stuff. And it's been an amazing success. It's actually been more successful than we anticipated. So initially we had to just stop people giving us stuff, which was rather embarrassing, because when you want to reuse things and say we can't take anything more, that's a bit of an issue. But it also highlights the flow, how much stuff is really coming in of reusable stuff. So we address that, and we're now collecting the stuff, and each day there's an organisation going, and we're collecting a lot of bikes, we're collecting a lot of bric-a-brac, we're collecting a lot of wood, and it's had an impact to the degree of 0.5% of waste arising, which isn't much, 0.5%, but when you think that there are some materials that we aren't collecting, and also that it hasn't been operating the whole time because it's often run voluntarily and we can't get people there, it's got an opportunity for significant influence. And this is one of our challenges, actually. How will we keep that going, and how could we incorporate it into the new recycling centre, if there is going to be one in Hartcliffe? How can we have a reuse facility embedded in there? Because there's definitely the opportunity, and it also really starts to create behaviour change, because that is also what we're about. We need to get people thinking, what is this stuff that I'm chucking away, and is it repairable? Can we actually fix this stuff? And that's another big opportunity that we've got. There's some amazing work going on in the city with repair cafes. How could we, as part of a reuse network, how could we embed a citywide scheme of repair cafes so that there's actually an opportunity for people, for the public, to revalue what it is that they've got and think about repairing things, but also think about engaging with the community in a different way, in a way that's really resilient. So that's another thing that we're looking at. that could easily connect onto having a library of things, be it a tool library or a toy library. The South Bristol Toy Library have participated in the project at Days Road, and that's been very interesting because the things that they collect, they're logging onto a database, so people can look at that information from anywhere in the city and then get that stuff. So how could we collaborate with other networks or projects so that we can use this technology so that we can create a way of changing people's behaviours. These are the opportunities available to us and what we need to engage with. So I've got here, what's our contribution to a zero waste city? We're doing it. We're trying to do as much as possible, and it's really exciting what's happening. And as I said, it's growing quite quickly. But as long as we're keeping stuck to what our values are about, I think we can actually make something really significant. And I'm really looking forward to talking to people today around the table about how we can do things. We're also doing community outreach work. We're looking at doing jumble trails and shopping facilities. And we're doing something at the Festival of Nature just to get people thinking about reuse, because at the end of the day, we're consuming 1.6 planets worth of resources, and we need to make drastic changes in our carbon emissions. And if what we're doing is consuming and throwing away, we're not changing any of that. And collaboratively, collectively, we can actually make a big difference. So I'm done. That's my 5 minutes. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. And see you at the table.
Royston, who is the coordinator for 7Net, which is a network of businesses in the Avonmouth area who've been working on resource efficiency issues for a number of years. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
We just need to...
Okay. So, as James said, I'm from 7Net, which is a social enterprise which is run by the businesses and community interests from the area around the port, from rural Portbury Dock through Avonmouth Sevenside right up to Western Approach Industrial Park in South Gloucester. And we were developed from an initiative looking at the opportunities for industrial symbiosis across port industrial areas. So these port industrial areas, similar to the Bristol port, are economic hearts of port cities, bringing together industry, logistics and residents. But this mixture can lead to environmental challenges with vast quantities of resource going in, through and out of the area. And circular economy thinking can provide opportunities to look at ways of using residual resources more smartly. Seeds for this thinking developed in several places, including the Netherlands in the 1980s, where the need to grow and intensify businesses was limited by the amount of space available. So people needed to think about innovating to be able to work smarter and to look at ways of being able to use, for example, residual resources exchanged between different organisations. An example of this is the Amsterdam Energy Company, which is co-located with a sewage treatment plant, and the biogas and sludge are mixed with the city's waste to generate electricity, which is used to help power the city's tram and metro system, and together with public buildings and an industrial area. There's also an example here of a biorefinery, but I won't go into too much detail here in the interests of time. 7Net, as I mentioned, grew from an initiative to encourage cooperation between neighbours and look at the opportunities to reduce waste to landfill. From an initial meeting in 2009, 50 plus businesses met on a regular basis over a 2-year period, and we were able to save around £287,000 and divert just over 37,000 tonnes from landfill. And this is known savings, so a lot of interaction was taking place between businesses that we weren't aware of. A key element is providing an opportunity for people to meet, exchange information and useful stuff, and things can grow from there as businesses grow in confidence. So one of the key things we found was that as businesses learned from each other and recognised the potential value of their waste streams, and it led to people rethinking the way that they looked at their waste, and so they started to see waste as a strategic asset rather than as a cost. And there are several examples where waste is, of businesses where waste is now cost neutral and landfill is now zero or minimal. So we're now starting on a new journey, which is looking at how we can move towards a circular economy and a circular community across the area. And this is one of the key themes of our economic plan that we've recently developed across the area. As I say, we're kicking this off this year. In fact, we've just kicked it off with an initiative working with Resource Futures, and we have 4 students working with us, including Letty, who's here with us today, and of course the businesses, which includes Genico, and you'll be hearing from Charlotte a little bit later. What we're looking to do is to put together a forum to bring various businesses together and develop a vision of circularity to help provide a strategic vision for the area. We'll be developing support materials and case studies. There are a lot of case studies from across the area, and looking at resource mapping to understand how some of the resources from across the area can be used more usefully, and also looking at a sharing economy. So an example is Children's Scrap Store, where clean and safe waste from across the area goes to Scrap Store and then supports local schools. That's an example of Cineat. A key way of moving forward is to deepen collaboration over time. So as businesses get to know each other better, you can move from quick wins, which enable confidence to be developed between businesses, to look at that initial success can then enable bonds to develop, which then can lead to major infrastructure projects. So there's a project that's developing across the area called the Avonmouth Seven Sides Heat Network. But you need those relationships to evolve over time as people become increasingly comfortable with each other. And working with the neighbours is absolutely key. It's important that businesses gain a wider knowledge of the other businesses across the area and get to know and trust each other. And most importantly, work together to take action. We'd like to see the Severnett area develop into an exemplar circular community as we move towards 2030 and then 2050. If you want to know more, you can join our table a little later, or you can join our Circular Economy Business Breakfast on June the 16th, where we'll be running a resource exchange workshop. So I hope that's given you a slight insight into what we're doing, and thank you very much for your time.
One of the exciting things that happened during Bristol 2015 was a focus on trying to reduce single-use plastic bottles by developing a network of refill stations. And Livy has been part of the City to Sea initiative, which is working on this and another number of other issues to try and reduce marine litter. So over to you, Livy.
Hi, so in the European seas, there's been 3 independent studies that have found that the most prevalent plastic packaging items are plastic bags, bottles, and then consumer packaging like crisps and sweet wrappers. So at City to Sea, we've established ourselves as a CIC, and we're focused on stemming the flow of plastic from the city to the sea and looking at how it's been travelling down our riverways. One of the projects that we seeded last year was Refill Bristol, and this came about alongside the project with the whales that were in Millennium Square, and as a response to that, Bristol 2015 sponsored a project called Refill Bristol. And to date, there are probably about 220, 230 refill stations in the city. So anywhere you see a logo like this, oh, we're still on this slide as well.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's the wrong way.
Keep going.
Oh, don't worry, won't worry about it. So anywhere where you see the Refill Bristol logo, you can refill your bottle for free. So the idea is that it's, there we go, there's the logo. A behaviour change project to encourage people to carry their reusable bottle around and feel confident that they could go and walk into a cafe, Specsavers even, and say, can you refill my bottle? So they don't need to refill or buy a bottle of water or a plastic bottle drink. So the project is not just about minimising plastic, it's also about health benefits and hydration. And on that basis, Bristol Water have also got behind the project. And this year, we are working with them. And they have just launched a Refill Bristol map app. So some of you may have had the Water Talk magazine come through your doors this week. And so there's a feature on Refill Bristol in there. So this is an app that you can have on your phone. It's free to download. And when you're out and about, you sort of think, oh, I'm a bit thirsty. Where's the closest refill point? And this project has sparked interest across the country. So we have now got Refill Bath happening, and we also won some funding quite recently from Ordnance Survey through a Geovation project. And so we're now working out how this app can be developed, and actually people get rewarded for refilling. So we're really working on behaviour change and focusing on how individuals will engage with these projects. One of the other things that we're looking to do over the summer is more sort of visual behaviour change projects, and so we've got a number of art and dance projects that we're looking for funding for, so we can really engage with people, young, especially younger people, and how we can really inspire them and engage with them in things that actually talk to them, rather than it just being like a big poster or an app. Like, what actually talks to them? What mediums are those? So we're really thinking about going a bit deeper with this, because we understand that it's not just enough, to hand out a leaflet and for people to respond to that. So interestingly, on the 15th of July, I've been given 65 to 85 Year 12 students, so I think they're about 16. I thought I was going to get 20, but they're like, oh, you can have all 65 or 85 of them. Great. So that is going to be a really interesting opportunity to actually take them on a litter pick so they can see for themselves what is actually going from our cities into the sea, and then work with them in some sort of workshops and engaging ways to say, how would they approach this problem and what would they do for the solution? So it's, thinking about what actually talks to people rather than giving them things like, oh, this will really work. It's like, what will people actually respond to? So it's quite exciting. We're also interested in other refill options, so things like the reusable cup schemes and all these kind of things that talk about prevention. So rather than thinking about how can we recycle plastic more, we're really interested in how we can prevent the unnecessary use of it, and especially single-use plastics. Very succinct.
Yeah. Can I invite Charlotte Stamper from Jellicoe, who's going to talk to you a little bit about their initiative, which deals with a lot of the food waste in Bristol, and hopefully most of that is unavoidable food waste.
Yeah, thanks. I just thought I'd start. Everyone seems to be laying claim to their Bristolian heritage. As you might be able to hear, I don't have any. But coming up to my decade in Bristol, came down for university and had every intention of leaving after 3 years, and I haven't managed to. I think that was probably initially something to do with the nightlife, but as I've got older, I've realised, what an engaging and inspiring place Bristol is, and I have no intention of leaving because I think we're on the verge of doing something really special here. But anyway, enough about me. I'm here to talk about the company I work for, Jellicoe. We're part of Wessex Water, We were formed in 2008 to help our parent company become more sustainable. And 8 years on, this is kind of what we do in a very simplistic nutshell. So on the left-hand side, we've got the things that we take in. So we take in food waste, commercial liquid waste, and sewage. And within those categories, food waste, we take the curbside collections delivered to us by Bristol Waste, and also from Bath. And we also take sewage waste from Bath and Bristol. And what we do is we treat those at our main site, just outside of Bristol in Avonmouth, and we produce some things, some useful things from the waste. We produce renewable gas and electricity. We produce grey water, which is used in a power station as cooling. And we produce biofertilisers that are used in agriculture. And as part of this, you know, we really want to help Bristol work towards becoming a zero-waste city. And this is just one innovation that we've done in the last couple of years that I wanted to kind of highlight, as showing the journey of what happens to your waste when you do recycle it. So the food waste and the sewage waste is treated via a process called anaerobic digestion. And this produces a methane-rich biogas. And in the last couple of years, what we've been able to do is upgrade this methane-rich gas into something that's almost pure methane. And what this means is it can be used as a direct substitute for natural gas, the fossil fuel, in the natural grid. And that diagram on the right kind of illustrates the circularity of this process. So household waste eventually ending up powering the households. And at the moment, we're producing enough of this biomethane to power over 5,500 homes per year. So that's kind of what's actually happening with the waste at the end of the process. But I was just asked to talk a little bit about one particular challenge that we're sort of facing as a company and also as a city, and Alison touched on this earlier. One of the waste partnership strategy targets is to reduce the amount of food waste going into the black bin from its current value of around 40% to 10% by 2025. So I just thought I'd explore that a little bit. You'll have to imagine that square of sort of yellow is an envelope. I'm going to do a classic back of the envelope calculation. So again, rough figures, but just to illustrate what's going on. So we know from figures produced by RAP that roughly 100 kilograms per person every year is produced in household food waste. So if we're saying at the moment that 40% of this goes to the black bin, that's 40 kilograms a year of food waste going into the black bin, about 0.04 tonnes. Roughly 500,000 people in Bristol, so multiplying this out, you're getting 20,000 tonnes a year disappearing into the black bin. So I'm putting out a missing poster. Where's this 20,000 tonnes a year? And really the problem is twofold, as you touched on, Jane. Firstly, how can we get this figure down? It doesn't need to be 20,000 tonnes a year. We don't need to be throwing out all this waste. But the unavoidable waste, what are we doing to make sure that the energy and nutrients are being recovered in the most efficient way possible? So that's one of the big challenges that I see going forward. It's a challenge, but I think we're some of the way there, definitely. We've got Bristol, as I said, an amazing city with engaged residents. We've got our food waste facility. We've been running that for 4 years now, going really well and producing, as I said, lots of renewable energy. We've got these targets developed by the Waste Partnership Strategy that give everything cohesion and direction. We've got media. I mean, food waste has never been so at the forefront of people's minds when you've got celebrity chefs on TV kind of promoting the issue. So the most important bit of that is you. And when I say you, I mean people in this room. We're the people who have the power to make the difference on not only this issue, but the other issues that have been talked about today. So I look forward to talking to some of you today at the workshops, and hopefully some really good things can come out of it.